No, man, but you got to keep going. What am I going to do, quit? That's not an option. You got to keep on keeping on. Life's a garden, dig it? You make it work for you. You never give up, man. That's my philosophy.
Hey gardeners, did you have a good week? I'm out here right now just checking on our little garlic patch we've got here. It's all sprouting up through all of our chopped up leaf mulch. But everything's looking real good. These guys will be going dormant here another week or two as we start getting some real hard freezes. But all right, let's get growing. All right. Welcome, gardeners, to this week's Let's Get Growing here on the Urban Gardener channel. I'm Enoch. I'm your host this week here on the Let's Get Growing show. And I want to welcome all of you here joining with us today. We've got a really great show for you here in just a little bit. We've got joining with us Danielle Martin from Wicked Awesome Gardening. So we'll have a really great conversation with her just a little bit here on the show. So stay tuned for that. And again, I want to thank all of you here for joining with us live. And if you are here with us right now, be sure, of course, to give us a big thumbs up. Hit that like button there. Also, don't forget, if you're here joining with us and you're new, to subscribe to our channel. Follow along with all of our garden adventures here on the Urban Gardener channel. So be sure to hit that subscribe button. In fact, hit the bell notification so you can be notified of our upcoming episodes. And you can also check us out at letsgetgrowing.live. And also, real quick here at the very top of the show, I always like to give a big shout out to all of our replay watchers. I know we get a lot of people watching on their own time. We are a live show, but everybody has their own things going on, and you get the great opportunity here on YouTube as well as other places to be able to watch us or listen to us on your own time. And for all of you replay watchers, I want to thank you all for joining with us. And if you do have any comments or any sort of questions or anything like that, suggestions even, I love suggestions for the show. So just get down in the comments section below and let me know right there. I love to hear from all of you. And if one of the best ways you can support our show also too, right here at the top of the show, ivorganics.com. IV Organics is our sponsor of the show, and you can use our promo code GROW10, GROW10 in their shop there to get 10% off. And then, of course, if you are here joining with us and you have any questions for me or for our guest, Danielle Martin, coming up here in just a little bit here, definitely get into our comment section there and leave any of your questions or comments. And we might just feature that right here on the show and ask her here live during our interview. And also, too, one of the great ways to share all of your gardens with me, I get to share all of my stuff here that I'm growing on our channel and all of that with all of you. And I love to see what all of you are all growing in your gardens too. And a great way to do that is to come join our Facebook gardening group, Let's Get Growing group there, where you can share pictures and videos and all sorts of things with your garden, as well as maybe answer some questions or ask some questions of others in our gardening community. Awesome. So again, it's really great to have all of you here with us this week. I hope that your week has been going really well as well too. So lots of things growing on here this time of year for a gardener like myself, who's got so many things in my plans for this next year's garden. But one of the things I'm also doing right now is a bit of reflection too. It's the end of the gardening season, so I'm kind of reflecting on this last year's season and kind of the things, how they grew, what some of the successes and failures and different things, and trying to kind of analyze, whether or not, I understand exactly what went on with certain crops and certain things that didn't do as well. And I did want to kind of talk about one of those with you all as well too here. Let's also jump in here real quick. I want to get into our comment section real quick and welcome a couple of people with us here. It looks like we've got Joe from Grow Big TV. Really awesome to see you here with us, Joe. Rob from Rob's Allotment Gardening joining us here from England. Great to see you. And huge shout out to our moderator, Jay Dixon, in the comment section there, moderating our conversation, and also dropping in lots of great links and everything throughout our conversation. So great to see all of you all here with us this week. And again, too, like I said, reflection time, and also, thinking about what we're doing moving forward in our gardens. And one of those things that I love growing every single year, and it took me a few seasons to kind of get them down and get it figured out, but I love growing peppers. And ever since I've really started having successes with growing those, I've been growing tons and tons of different varieties over the years. But this last year, and again too, I recognizing where the issue was obviously right from the get-go. I was having issues with whether or not I was going to be able to continue growing on my property here in the gardening spaces that I was used to growing, or was I going to have to move to another space, and these sort of things that I was worried about at the beginning of the season. So I didn't get off to the type of start that I was looking to get off to last year. And what I would usually do when it comes to peppers is right now, in just a couple of weeks, and this is sort of what I'm doing also at this moment too, is going through my seed catalogs and my different pepper sellers, and looking at different varieties that I might want to choose to grow in my garden, as well as varieties that I grow every single year. But again, this last year, I didn't get to start off all of the things that I normally do, the way I normally start them. And I would do that right here in the next couple of weeks at the beginning of January. And at the beginning of January is when we would start sowing out our pepper seeds. And in some peppers, I actually utilize warming pads in order to make sure that my seedlings and germinate a little bit faster. But peppers can take a little while, so it's good to even get an even earlier start because of that. Some people say it takes 3-4 weeks sometimes with certain varieties to kind of germinate and pop up and start growing. So again, getting off to an early start, and that was my issue this last year when it came to peppers, was getting off to that early start like I usually do. And so we were really kind of scrambling when it came to the beginning of this last growing season, because again, it was kind of late that I got the news that we were going to be able to continue growing here on the property. So then it wasn't until like about March that I was actually starting all of my pepper varieties that I was starting. And so in March, that's literally like 3 months later than what I would start them at. And by time March would come around, I would already have really nice plants growing indoors that are getting ready to go outdoors when the weather started to warm up. So I give them a really good amount of time indoors to really grow, to really get a really good size, to really get some really good root growth, all of that, so that I can get a really good head start on all of my peppers. So that, by time I'm planting them out maybe end of April, very beginning of May, and by time the end of May, beginning of June, I'm already starting to harvest peppers off of all of my plants. So, that's a good reason to get started. And that way we're harvesting pretty much all throughout the gardening season when it comes to our pepper plants. But I didn't have that this last year. In fact, I had really late harvest. The plants kind of struggled because we got them started late. So they were really young when all of the hot weather really started kicking in. And so that really kind of stunted their growth just a little bit. So so it's kind of important to be able to make sure that if I'm going to succeed with some of the pepper varieties that I'm going to grow this next season, that what I'm going to want to do is make sure that I'm getting them started here really soon, really soon. So again, that's kind of part of what I'm reflecting on and wanting to make sure that I'm getting the best start that I can for this next season, because that was one of the things that didn't really do as well this last growing season. Tomatoes, we're still kind of iffy on, because again, that really comes down to, again, also getting a good head start, getting them out as early as you can in the season. This is going to be one of the tactics I'm actually going to try this next year. We're going to just grow maybe a few different varieties, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to get them out early, and I'm going to protect them during any sort of frost dangers or any sort of things like that as well. So that hopefully I can get a nice, good early growth, not just indoors, but then get them outdoors early as well, protect them. And then hopefully I'll get enough growth, get enough, root development and all of that, root strength, everything, so that I can get some plants that can survive better during the hotter part of the season, because that's really our issue each and every year. Just get more and more surprised about how hot it gets in my area here. We live in a valley. I live in a big valley that's just inland a little bit, and during the summertime, man, we can really get some scorching summers for being in Southern Oregon. I talk to a lot of people from around the country. So when I mentioned that I'm from Southern Oregon, a lot of people think Pacific Northwest. They think rainy and green and all of that. And I have to like tell them that, we do kind of get that kind of moderate, cool, rainy, off season, our fall or late fall, winter, early spring, that sort of thing. But man, once we get into mid spring, man, everything just flips like a switch and starts to get really, really hot around here. And and that actually has just been kind of something, again, that's progressively each and every year getting more and more warmer. But this has been going on now for about 7-8 years now, that I've been noticing this progressive warmer and warmer summer. I mean, I used to have no problems at all growing tomatoes throughout the whole summertime and growing tons and tons of tomatoes. It's just recently in these last few years that I've been seeing this change in the ability, or at least in my harvest and what I'm getting from it. I mean, we're spending all this time out there gardening and growing these plants. You want to make sure that you're able to get lots of fruits from them. And so that's been our challenge. And again, analyzing those sort of things and what the effect was on our garden this last year, so that we can start planning for this next year, so that we can kind of hopefully uh, um, make up for some of these sort of issues that we've got to deal with. um, Also, today I wanted to mention to you as well too. We did have our guest on this last week. Was Steve Ellington from the Rootbound podcast, and his. I was on his show as well, so we kind of did that little collaboration. He came on my show, and I did his show as well too. And I just wanted to mention to everybody that it is on the Rootbound website there as well too, and you can check out that conversation that we had with me, where we talk about this plant right here, the one that you see there, the spider plant that's hanging down. And I tell you the story about all of that, as well as a few other plants as well too. It was a really fun conversation on his podcast. He's got a really fun, really great podcast there at Rootbound. So I encourage you all to go check that out as well too. I think I'll get a link down in the description, as well as I'm sure Jay will probably pop a link into the comments for us there. But yeah, it was a really great, fun conversation, and also we I met him through one of our previous guests that we had, Karen Hugh, who wrote the book Leave Your Troubles Behind. And Karen introduced me to Steve because we're all a part of this other kind of podcast community that we've all been part of for, I think, oh man, all of us have been listening to that podcast, I think now for over 10 years now. So, but we all kind of got to meet each other through this other community, and we're all gardeners and growers and doing something, you know, Karen being an author, and I doing this live show, and Steve with his podcast. And we all got to kind of meet up and work together and do some things this year, which is really kind of fun to have that happen. But you can also check out on the Rootbound podcast and go check out Karen's conversation as well too on that podcast. That'd be really really great for you to go show them some support as well too. So yeah, so that was really fun. I also this week recorded a podcast with previous guest Greg Peterson for the Urban Farm podcast, and we've already been on his podcast a couple of times. Doing what he does is he invites on gardeners and growers onto a monthly kind of garden chat where we talk about different subjects and all of that. I did one months and months ago on small space gardening, and then I think like maybe a couple months ago we did one on vermicomposting, on doing worms and worm farming. And so I think that one is about to come out, and then the podcast he recorded with us this week will be coming out in a few months, and I'll let everybody know when all of those come out as well too. So yeah, just been really kind of a fun week here. A lot, like I said, lots of planning when it comes to our garden and all of that sort of stuff there as well too. So yeah, uh, for sure. So it's just about time for us here to talk with our featured guest. So we'll be back in just a moment here and talk with Danielle Martin of Wicked Awesome Gardening. Hey gardeners, thanks for tuning in to our show today. We'll be right back at it here in just a moment. I just wanted to take a second here to highlight our regular videos and features here on the Urban Gardener channel. Our weekly garden journals, and our incredible featured visits. All right, everybody. This week on Let's Get Growing, we've got joining with us from the Wicked Awesome Gardening channel. We've got with us Danielle Martin. Let's welcome Danielle to the show. Hey, how are you doing? Welcome
Good.
to Let's
How
Get
are you?
Growing. Good, good. It's great to have you on the show with us this week. Awesome, awesome. So tell me a little bit about yourself here. How did you get started gardening? Where does your garden story begin, Danielle?
When I was a kid, my parents grew a lot of their produce in the backyard. So I was always out there planting things, transplanting, digging in the dirt. And as I grew older, I was a little reluctant. As teenagers are, like, I don't want to work in the garden.
Yeah.
Years later, I moved into an apartment with a sunny porch, and I was looking at it and I was going, I could grow a tomato out here.
Yeah.
And so that turned into 2 tomatoes, which turned into some peppers and peas and carrots and spinach and lettuce and beans and blueberries and strawberries. And I was growing 30 different things on that little porch.
Oh, yes, yes.
And then it evolved into a bigger side yard garden at a new apartment. And then that's when I started my channel. And then I lost that apartment because they sold the building, and I haven't really been able to garden in the last 2 seasons because I moved in with my family. But this spring, spring 2023, I was able to purchase 2 acres and a trashed mobile home that I'm fixing up on my own. So this spring, I'll be building out probably about a half-acre garden and small orchard.
Excellent, excellent. That's really quite a change though from having a small space to such a larger space like that, right?
Oh, it's fantastic. And
It's fantastic.
terrible because now you want to grow all the things, and it's going to be, I'm probably going to have like eyes too big for my
Mhm.
cabinets and all that for everything that I want to grow and store. But it's
Yeah,
a good
that's just
problem to have.
It's just kind of the way it works, and from what I'm hearing from you, your story is kind of similar to mine too, is that, I do have a lot of, like, growing experience. I grew up, growing lots of, like, house plants and really kinda had a green thumb for that when I was young, but then there was this real gap in my life where, again, as a teenager, I kinda, pushed away from all of that, and then, I think, years and years later in my adulthood where it came back to me, kind of in a strange way with a friend giving me a cucumber plant. But same thing happened though then too, is that, I'm here, I got a limited space and I'm trying to pack everything I possibly can into it. And luckily I got just a little bit bigger space, but nothing quite like what you got to move into where you've got all of this potential space to be thinking about though too. So again, I can't imagine my mind would be going wild too. All right. All right. So what is it too? So you talk about how again it came back around again as you got older to growing. What was it? What kind of happened at that moment too? That really kind of sparked that?
Um, I think it was just a part of it was a need to want to start saving money on groceries and things like that because, like
Okay.
most of the country, most of the world, probably food prices are going, and it's also a bit of a little bit of a flex going. Oh, I grew this entire meal from my porch. I'll never forget that first time that I made my one of my favorite dishes, an oven baked ratatouille,
Mm,
and it had eggplant, zucchini, summer squash, tomatoes, garlic, onion, and it all came rosemary, and it all came from my front porch, which was amazing. But
yeah.
I grew up watching Little House on the Prairie, like many of us, and
Right.
I always kind of wanted that kind of simplified lifestyle, even though it's obviously very very difficult. I don't want to go full on. Like, I like a washing machine and internet. I
Yes.
don't need to go that far,
Right.
but I've always wanted to have a homestead, and I just didn't think people did this anymore. And then while I was starting to grow things on my porch, I'm like, oh hey, how can I grow green beans on my
Hmm.
in a container? So I searched YouTube. I didn't
Yeah.
watch YouTube a lot at that
Yeah.
point for anything. I'd listen to songs. I might look up a
Right.
how-to video.
Yeah.
So I go and I start looking up how to grow green beans, and MI Gardener shows up, and then I was just done. It was down the rabbit hole, and that led me to Jess at Roots and Refuge, and that woman changed my life. Like, it showed
Yeah.
me so many. It opened me up to all these other people too. That people are doing this. They are going back to the land. They are going back to taking control of their food supply and being more self-sufficient, more community sufficient. And
Yeah.
so here I am. A year ago, I was thinking I was still a couple years out from owning property, being able to do things. But here I am. I've got goats. I've got chickens. I'm starting my garden up, and
Yeah.
it just blows my mind. It's like living the dream.
No doubt. Exactly. I feel the same way though too when it comes down to it. And again, I'm finding a lot of similarities between both of our stories there and for me again too kind of comes down to that first meal. It wasn't necessarily a meal, it was just snacking on some cucumbers because I grew
Mhm.
this cucumber and cucumbers are literally like my daughter's favorite thing in the world. So it was just kind of interesting how this friend just happened to give me a cucumber plant. It's my daughter's favorite thing. I grow it out on this balcony of an apartment I'm living in, takes over my balcony. We have all these just wonderful looking cucumber fruits. I can't believe I've grown them. I cut them up and I give them to my daughter and we're eating them. And I tell her, hey, can you believe that I grew these? And she just like her eyes go wide. And when her eyes go wide, my eyes kind of go wide. And I'm just realizing, wait a minute. I just produced my own food. We didn't buy this in a
Mhm.
store, that sort of thing. And it was just an
Like having
amazing
magic powers.
it was literally like a magic type amazing type of thing. Like I said, I've always kind of grown and had house plants that have followed me around. But when I grew my own food, when I
Mhm.
produced something for myself in a way, it was so just really kind of like you said, this magic feeling, this empowering type of thing. And then next thing you know, I'm kind of off to the races. And you also mentioned as well too, the same thing for me. Years ago, as Luke was actually just getting started himself on making videos, is when I'm showing up on YouTube. Similar thing. I only looked at it. It was actually semi new, only been around for a few years. And again, how to videos or that sort of thing was what we looked up there. And when I looked up how to grow more food, how to grow tomatoes, like you said, how to grow beans, carrots, radishes, all whatever. You're like, my mind's going crazy. I want to grow all this stuff. And then I find all of these just really awesome people
Yep.
on YouTube growing all of these, growing and showing how they're growing their gardens and all of that. And again, like I said, it's great and awesome to see where Luke is today with MI Gardener. I remember him as a young teenager,
Mhm.
12 years ago, watching some of his videos back then and see where things are today, where we are all are today in a sense too, yourself,
Yep.
like you
I
said,
wouldn't
you're
be here. I mean, on YouTube, I wouldn't be on YouTube if I hadn't started watching Roots and Refuge. I never thought I would be making videos.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I really, and for the longest time, as I was even having people here seeing the stuff I was growing and doing outdoors. I have an alleyway garden. We were doing rooftop peppers in these wicking containers. So I had all this sort of stuff that was really visible to the public. And so I had a lot of people, neighbors, community members who would walk through the alleyway, see what we were doing, and constantly mention about how I need to like share or make pictures and things like that. And I still never really thought about like making videos until a YouTuber that I watched at the time mentioned or was giving away a couple of his cameras. And I thought,
Oh.
okay, cool. I'm gonna go try to like win a couple of these cameras. And even then, I had no clue what I was going to do with them. I just thought it'd be cool to like get this guy's cameras, that he makes his videos on. And then it wasn't until like a while after I didn't win the cameras, but it was a little while after that that I started thinking like, would I, could I make videos? And that's kind of what it started, that process of me thinking about it. And I did, yeah. So I just started pulling out a phone camera and started going at it, and can't believe it. It's really great.
Yeah, I still manage everything from my phone: shoot, edit, upload, manage, comments, everything. Everything is on my phone. I did get my first big girl camera this year.
Yeah.
Thanks to Don at Little Mountain Life. He was selling his camera, and I used my speaker fee for when I did a Q&A at Homesteaders of New England. I
Oh,
just,
nice.
said, oh, hey, the amount of his camera and the amount of
Mhm.
my speaker fee is the same. So I told Jack from the Mindful Homestead, I'm like, Jack, just give it to Don, and then Don gave me my camera. So I was like, okay. I
That's
still haven't
terrific.
used it though because my laptop is so slow. So
Oh,
there's no point because I won't be able to work with the footage until I get a new laptop. That's
Mhm.
a ways down the pike. I need plumbing in the kitchen first.
Yeah, there are priorities, right?
Hmm.
Exactly. And that's kind of one of the things in similar model I kind of followed myself though too, as I was making videos. I started with the phone camera. I already had kind of a cheap laptop with a free editor.
Hmm.
I don't know how I can't, and I've tried to actually do the editing on the phone, and it just does not work for me. So I have to do it kind of like on a separate computer. But yeah, so I always like whatever I get, whether it's YouTube ad money or any of that sort of other things that come through for us, affiliates, that sort of thing. I just constantly reinvest that. And so, like
Hmm.
everything I've got a nice camera for the show here, all that sort of stuff. The computer we use, all of that is all
Eventually, I'll get there.
reinvestment and all that sort of stuff. And again, that's what I was going to say. It's just kind of like one thing at a time. You just got to really
Yeah.
kind of take it slowly, and
For
eventually
now,
you're going to have all of that stuff that you need, and
yeah.
be well on the way.
For now, everything that's coming in is going into this renovation. So, but I
Right.
mean, it's done a pretty decent job of it. So, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So, and again too, you just keep at it and things will keep on growing along, right?
Yep.
All right, so let's dig into how um, again I was kind of talking about at the beginning of the show here, kind of reflecting on this last season and kind of examining some of the things that I want to make sure I'm improving or fixing or doing as far as certain crops that I want to make sure are going good. How did your overall growing season go this last year?
This past year, I actually did not grow anything at all
Oh,
because I
whoa.
closed on the house at the end
Yes.
of January, but it was not livable. So I've got 2 acres here that's covered
Okay.
mostly in brush. Um,
Okay.
Tons of sumac and multiflora
Mm.
rose, all of that good stuff. So, and the home on the property was a trashed mobile home. Like
Oh,
I took
yeah.
almost
Okay.
almost 30 contractor bags of trash out of here, and it didn't have any working utilities or anything like that. So basically, the whole year was spent working on this place and getting it to livable condition. Like I
Yeah.
said, I still don't have plumbing to the kitchen. We didn't get our
Right.
heating system in because I've been trying and trying to schedule contractors, and they're like, "Oh, yep, yep, we'll get you in a couple weeks. A couple weeks."
Yeah.
It's December in New Hampshire.
That's got to be pretty
Thank,
cold.
yeah, thankfully there's a wood stove, so even though we've got nights in the teens, it's pretty cozy in here. So thankfully I have that. But yeah, just not enough time to really get anything really growing. I did discover several things on the property that made me really excited. There is a giant rhubarb patch that's like 8 by 8.
Yeah.
There's blackberries on the property. I found wild blueberries. So that was kind of neat to find, and I'm going to expand on that next year. And this winter is all about planning to get the big garden going, get my perennials in, like my asparagus, my strawberries, my berry plants. And I've got the goats. So as soon as things start popping up in spring, they're going to be out in the back trying to clear all that out so that I'll have
Mhm.
pasture. I'm thinking I'm going to
Yeah.
plant blackberries around the outside of the pasture so that whatever grows in to the
Yeah.
pasture, the goats can eat. And then I only have to maintain one row.
Right.
I have to
Yes.
maintain one side to keep it from going crazy there because the goats will take care of it on the other end.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, just lots of planning right now.
Exactly. And thinking about the right stuff, getting in
Hmm.
those perennials, your perennial fruits, you're
Yep.
thinking about any trees or anything like that. You're going to get some trees
Yeah.
started.
I have one section up at the top of the property where I think I'm going to put 4, maybe 5 trees. And then I've got to have the goats clear a lot of that as well. But I'm going to plant the trees this spring. That's the first area that the goats are going to be tethered. Well, not tethered, but penned out there. So I'm going to put 4 or 5 trees, a couple of apple trees, a couple of pear trees, and then I'm going to fence it and I'm going to have ducks.
Okay.
So trying to get a little bit of permaculture going in there. So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And So you didn't get anything growing this last year? Nothing in pots even? No
No, it was
herbs or
just, I was
anything
doing
somewhere?
a lot of running back and forth between Massachusetts and New Hampshire, and
Yeah.
Massachusetts and New Hampshire and Massachusetts. So a lot
Yeah,
of back
yeah.
and forth and not a lot of time. And I couldn't really spare because building a garden does take some funds. The
Mhm.
thing about this property is it's on a river, which is great. I have 400 feet of river frontage out here that's beautiful, but the soil here is basically sand and rock.
Oh, wow.
So I've got to do raised beds, and
Yeah. Yes,
there's
sir.
there's a cost in there, and having to bring in
Mhm.
compost and all of that. So the great thing about getting the goats and the chickens going this summer was I've got a nice big pile
Yes.
of goat manure and hay and all of that breaking down, and that's going to provide some really good base layer
There
for the
you go.
raised beds that I'm going to be building up in spring. But I did get my garlic in, so
Oh,
that's
yes,
helpful.
there you go. Yeah, 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 you gotta get your garlic in early, right? Make
Hmm.
sure it's going it's the first thing of the next season,
Yep.
so yeah, that's really great too. So yeah, that'll be awesome though, because really there's nothing like being able to really kind of you know take on a new kind of garden space and be able to kind of really reimagine the things that
Hmm.
that you want to grow and that you want to do. So what are some of those things? What are some of your favorite things to grow? Some of those things that you're definitely going to make sure you're growing this next season.
Tomatoes are my absolute favorite, and so it's going on. I didn't have homegrown tomatoes at all last year. And the year before that, we had horrible heat and drought. So the tomatoes that I did plant in my father's garden plot really did not do very well. So I'm very excited to get back to growing a large variety of tomatoes. I've probably got 80 something tomato varieties in my collection, and I'm I can't grow them all, but I can grow a decent amount of them. So yay. I have to have eggplant. I have to have bell peppers.
Yes.
Um, I'm gonna grow lots of leafy greens. I'm a big lover of kale.
Hmm.
I don't know how well okra will do up here in New Hampshire with the shorter growing season, but I'm gonna give it a
Yeah.
whirl. For
Yeah.
being a northern girl, I tried okra. I grew it back in 2021,
Yeah.
and it was pretty good. I picked it and ate it fresh right off the plant, and it's not that mucusy. Get over it, people.
Yeah.
But it was good. I felt like it needed some
Yeah.
salt, but
Right.
um,
Okra's a
yeah.
fast
So
grower though too. So,
yeah,
okra it's really going to grow really fast. You'll get something off of whatever plants you're going to grow.
yeah. New
It
Hampshire's
all
getting
depends on
very
how
warm,
much
so
ultimately
I
you're
think it'll
going to
be
get.
fine.
Yeah. Yeah. You just got to make sure you're getting them out when the soil's warm enough. They
Yep.
definitely like the warmer weather and are not going to respond very well to any sort of cool weather. So you definitely want
Yeah,
to make sure the
that's the
soil is warm
challenge that
enough.
I'm facing up here is that when I was in Massachusetts, I was in like 6B bordering on like 7A. And
Hmm.
now I'm in 5, well, actually, based on the recent shift in growing zones, I'm 5B here.
Okay.
But it's not so much about I mean, obviously, hardiness zones is really about survivability through winter. But
Hmm.
what I do have is a much shorter growing season.
Yeah.
Where I would
Yeah.
have a last frost date around the first week of April. Here, it's like the second week of May.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and the first frost comes in about a month earlier. It comes at the end of September instead of an end of October. So I've lost about a month and a half, maybe 2 months of growing season from where I
Hmm.
was. So I've got to adjust for that.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I think you bring up a good point. It's something that everybody who knows and listens to my show here, it's something I've talked about. I even put a video out and we had a discussion about a couple of weeks back, with the whole new USDA growing zones map and all of that kind of got everybody, kind of discussing all of the elements of that, those changes and that sort of stuff. But really, you brought up a good point. It is really only about our survivability during the coldest points of winter And we really want to be looking at our first and last frost dates, and start and really kind of recognizing what types of plants and things that we're growing in our garden, whether they're cooler, colder season crops versus warmer season crops. And then that'll let us know kind of where in that range that we're getting things started, or whether we're going to be starting certain things indoors and all of that sort of stuff as well too. It's kind of, as I was discussing a little bit earlier when I was talking about peppers, I love growing peppers. You just mentioned that as well too. And I like growing all sorts of different varieties, but one of the things I like doing, because um, when I like what I found out this year, I got a late start getting my peppers started, not like I usually do. And by time, the heat and the warm weather showed up in my summertime, my plants weren't old enough yet, hadn't had enough,
Hmm.
you know what I mean? So when the heat really hit, that kind of set them back just a bit. And usually what I'll do is I'll get started right after the new year and start all the plants indoors, and I'll grow them really, and get them into larger pots and grow them indoors up until the point where, maybe I kind of push it just a little bit, a couple of weeks before my first or last frost date, and I'll start getting them outdoors, and that way they've got a really great head start.
Hmm.
By early summer, I'm harvesting all summer and into the fall, and it's really the best way to go when it comes to that.
Oh
But
yeah.
again, that's really kind of thinking about, the gauging my garden when I'm getting those sort of things started by my first and last frost date.
Yeah, I used to start onions in January, late
Hmm.
January, and then I'd have them outside by middle of March when I'm out there planting my peas. And I don't think here that I could probably even start my onions until the end of February, maybe beginning of March. It's
Yeah.
it's crazy.
Yeah, and that's going to be the thing, is being able to gauge and figure out, those sort of things
Yep.
that
It's
are
an adjustment.
that from what you're used to, and from where you've got to think about the different climates, microclimates. I had Greg Peterson on the show recently, and he moved from Arizona to North Carolina. So, I mean, imagine the difference in,
Totally different.
climates and all that sort of thing that you got to get used to from that sort of situation as well, too. But, it's just a great opportunity to learn more things, and get more skills in being able to grow in different climates. Let's see here.
Mhm.
There was a question that came up here. I'm trying to grab real quick here. This comes from Joe over at Grow Big TV. I think he got, oh, I think he meant Danielle, though. Question for Danielle. Have you have you had a chance to have time for theater? And
Okay.
and
I
if so,
do.
what play are you in this winter? So Joe knows you for sure, and I've been
Hmm.
following around for sure, and that's something that you share about as well too. That you like doing some theater. So
Yep.
tell us a little bit about that. Maybe tell us about your theater story real quick, and then mention answer Joe's
I was
question.
on the board of a community theater group and doing like 1 to 2 shows pretty much constantly since early 2021.
Okay.
But I actually left my theater group this summer over an issue that I have with them. So I won't talk about that. But I left the theater group. And so I've been taking a break basically since the end of May. I directed a musical version of Matilda, which was really awesome. And then because I was doing so much here, I had to take a break. And then at the end of the summer, I left the theater group altogether. And there is in my new area, because I'm about 90 minutes from my former theater group,
Okay.
um, there's community theater up here. So I'm looking at auditioning for a show in January. So, ta-da.
So you're getting ready to jump back in.
Yep.
But yeah, again too, so it's a big transition. You're
Oh, yeah.
moving from one place to another place, totally different communities in this case as well too. So all of the things in your life that you really enjoy kind of have to kind of go on hold for a little bit, so that you
Yep.
can make those adjustments and everything as well too. But just like gardening, you plan on jumping right back into the community theater groups as well too.
Mhm. Yeah, not so much on the level that I was before, because I was also a board member, and it took up a lot of time and energy, and
Yeah.
I just want to enjoy it for a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. So you real quick, just um so you did you mentioned that you also direct. So do you direct, do you act, or do you do both? Is this
But directing Matilda was a first time for me.
okay?
Normally I'm on stage. Let's see. Recent roles, I was Lily St. Regis and Annie. I played Carrie's mother in Carrie the musical, Grandma Adams in the Addams Family, the mother in Trail to Oregon,
Mm,
um, various ensemble roles. I mean, but
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah.
musical theater is my thing.
Yeah, I love a little bit of theater myself too. When I was younger, I did a few different plays and that sort of thing. I really liked it, but it was one of those things that I didn't continue on with, which I kind of wish I did a little bit too sometimes. But I do like a little bit of theater, and on my channel every Halloween we get together and watch couple versions of Little Shop of Horrors, one of my
Love
favorite
Little
shows.
Shop.
One of my favorite shows of all time for sure.
Oh, I also played Janet in Rocky Horror Picture Show, speaking of Halloween.
Oh yes, that
And
would
I've
be a
done
fun
Shadow
one
Cast
too.
too, so
That's great. That sounds like a lot of fun
oh,
for
it's a riot.
sure. Yeah, I've thought about it, but again, too, I got myself so busy over these last many years. I do live just a few minutes from Ashland, Oregon, and Ashland, Oregon's really well known for its Shakespeare festivals and all of its theater that it has here as well, too. So ever since I moved down here years ago, I kind of always thought about like, should I go and maybe try out for some little part just to dip my toe into something,
You should.
in some sort of thing. But then again, I got busy with all this sort of stuff, and I never find time for anything else anymore. But it would be fun. It would definitely be fun for sure. All right, all right. Here, real quick. Let's see. Is there a question here? Oh, okay. Yep, we do got a question here. Jay, what is your biggest priority for your permaculture property?
I think the biggest thing is planning out a garden, um, trying to plan out the whole garden, because I can't make the whole thing all at once. It's going to be a multi-year project to build out the raised bed garden. So I've got to design it all now, and I've got
Yeah.
to design it right, to be able to do that, and then be able to build it in stages.
Hmm.
So I've
The
got to figure it
overall
all out now.
vision. You got to have that overall vision for
Yeah,
what you want it to look like ultimately. And then from there, break it down into the stages and which one you need to start before you start. Yeah, and start.
yeah. So I've got to do like stage one of the raised bed garden this
Yeah.
year. I've got to get the goats clearing certain areas of the farm. I've got to get them eventually clearing the back half where they're going to have their rotational grazing pasture. It's not going to be as intensive like daily moves like I'd like to, because it's only about 3/4 of an acre back there. So there's not that much moving that I can do. But yeah, I've got to get my fruit trees in this year. I've got to get part of, stage one of the raised bed garden. I've got to get certain areas cleared, and that's looking at 2024. 2025, we're going to add a couple of pigs,
Okay.
and yeah, and we're going to have our first goat babies born on the farm in May, so that's also exciting.
Yeah.
Another priority for 2024 is raising meat birds. So I'm going to
Okay.
be doing that too. I learned how to process chickens this fall from the Mindful Homestead. They had me come over and hang out with them for a day while they were processing, and that was really awesome. Took me through it start to finish. And so I've got a bunch of different dual purpose chicken breeds that I've got out here, and a really nice heavy bred rooster that hopefully will make some interesting barnyard mixes for the freezer later.
Right on, right on. Lots of great plans. So again, we talked kind of a little bit about some of those favorite things and all that. Are there some of your what are some of your least favorite things to grow in the garden? Are there, I mean, just things that you just don't like, or things you don't really see yourself growing, or maybe some things that just give you trouble and you have the hardest time growing anyways?
I have yet to successfully grow any sort of melon. So that
Okay.
is
Yeah.
the challenge I'm giving myself this year, is that I am going to get some sort of melon.
Yes. Yes.
So hopefully
Exactly.
Kajari melons. Kajari melons. Joe and Grow Big TV, he sent me some Kajari melon seeds that have just been sitting and waiting.
Oh,
This
perfect.
year is the year of the Kajari melon.
Gonna make it happen, right?
Oh yeah.
It's kind of what I say all the time, and I was just actually talking about this with someone the other day about yeah, they were asking me about certain advice I'd give people, when they're, for starting out gardening and all that and I just say determination, is one of those first initial things that you want to think about, because gardening's fun, but sometimes results aren't.
This
and
is
and
true.
uh so especially when we're first starting to garden, so being determined to learn to grow certain things. I've had over my
Mhm.
years several different things in the garden that just I have the hardest time with, but each and every year I work on it every single year, determined that I'm going to actually grow you know uh,
Yep.
certain things. This last year I was finally able to succeed a bit with broccoli. I could still do better.
Mhm.
Brassicas in general give me a hard time.
Brussels
uh
sprouts, man. Brussels sprouts.
Still working on them too, I'm telling you.
Yeah, I'm hoping to get some bigger Brussels sprouts this year. I did okay with broccoli,
Hmm.
but my Brussels sprouts were pretty small.
Yeah, yeah. The key for me in Brussels sprouts, and I keep kind of I don't know, I think this last year is, for one, is just pest pressure. Aphids
Hmm.
will, I mean, if there's anything you're growing in your garden that is going to attract aphids, or
Hmm.
anything else, white fly, just all sorts of stuff just seem to flock right to Brussels sprouts,
Yeah,
man, and
I
it becomes
had
one of the harder
4
things
Brussels
to.
sprout plants, and one of them like
Mhm.
leaned over and out, and
Yeah,
for some reasons the aphids just went boom. But they
yeah,
were only on that one Brussels sprout plant.
yeah.
So I went, okay, you guys can keep that one.
It's
Just leave me the others. So trap crop,
yeah.
accidental trap crop.
Yeah, yeah, and I did do that, but then I ended up, and it was purely my fault, though, the reason why the rest of them didn't succeed and all that. But I did that very similar thing, because that's, like I said, the key for me is that I've got to make sure that I'm handling the pest pressure, and if I can get the plants past that, then we're good to go. Because
Hmm.
really the key for the Brussels sprouts is to grow these plants, and start them. I start mine all the way back in late spring, early summer, and and having to grow them through the summertime, through the heat, and so that pest
Hmm.
pressure is going to be even more so, because it's going to, the plants are going to be struggling as it is just to get through the heat, and any
Yep.
struggling plant is a feast for
Yep.
pests. So it's trying to be able to balance that and get them through the summertime, get them through the heat, get them through the pest pressure, and then and I've had one plant, just one plant, and only on its own, and by no help from me, years ago, this was what I noted was this its success was, getting through that time, not having the pest pressure, and then in the fall just took off and
Hmm.
started growing new leaves. And then all of a sudden, and it's when it gets colder too, you start noticing those Brussels sprouts just starting to pop up, all of them. And it's just, again, determination. I'm gonna get there with that one for sure. And I've been talking about Brussels sprouts since some of the very first episodes I've ever filmed on my channel here. I think it's almost 7 years ago now. So
They're good. They're good. More people need to give them a chance.
yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. 7 years though I've been working on this, Danny. 7 years. I'm gonna make it happen though. I guarantee you it's going to happen. Right on, right on. So, again, I guess kind of going along with that same sort of theme there, what are kind of some of your biggest gardening challenges? So we don't know necessarily challenges, in your future garden, but let's kind of talk
Mhm.
about some of your previous gardens and some of the things you've kind of already worked with before. What have been some of those challenges that you've dealt with that, you
Sometimes it's keeping up with it.
yes.
So keeping up with
Hmm.
those harvests. One of the biggest things I think that most people, myself included, especially, can really work on is also making sure you know how to use everything that you're growing, because you don't want that, beautiful produce that you grew to then just sit there and go to waste. Um,
Yeah. Hmm.
so also, limiting myself on how much of things I'm growing so that I don't have too much excess. But actually, there's a wonderful thing in my new town that I discovered is that um, they have a veggie stand where people in town take all their excess and they
Yes.
just put it in the bins for anybody who needs it to come up and get it. So there's like a cooler full of people's extra eggs. Um, right before Thanksgiving, somebody came along and stocked it with a whole bunch of extra acorn and butternut squash that they grew. And
Hmm.
so it's a wonderful thing. So if I do say have a bumper crop of zucchini or whatever, I can always go whatever I can't preserve or cook or eat or, give to people I know, I can
Right.
always bring there. Although zucchini does have its own national holiday. I don't know how many people are going to go to the stand looking for zucchini.
You do.
August 8th, National Sneak a Zucchini onto a Neighbor's Porch Day.
That's right. That's right. I do a lot of that too, actually.
Yep. Don't
But
leave the windows down on your car because somebody will fill it with zucchini.
and I think another thing too. I mean, it's a really great suggestion about about the vegetable and fruit stand idea. It's something I'm thinking about as well for my property as we're looking to expand and grow more and do some things with some changes and things that we're going to get to do this next year. So I'm kind of thinking about a similar thing, but I'm also thinking about, where and what's going on with your property into the future. And I think you might find a lot more of a regenerative use of a lot of that stuff now with all the animals and everything as
Hmm.
well too.
Yes.
So again too, and it's one of the things that a philosophy on that I kind of follow as well too, is if even if you've growing something and it still gets used on your property some sort of way, like a lot of my excess fruits and things that maybe some of the cracked ones or things like that that I might use in or do things with other ways, I'm now able to put, like, I've got a really cool, like, big huge worm composting type bin
Nice.
thing, so I'm able to throw a lot of that stuff in there and just feed it to them, hopefully, chickens in the future and things like that, that we can feed some of these excess things to them as
Yeah,
well
my
too.
chickens love zucchini.
Composting, you're probably gonna do a lot of composting and
Lots of
everything too.
composting.
So even excess things that end up in there and become soil and organic material for our gardens in the future are still used.
Yeah.
It's not a waste. So we're not wasting things in any way when it comes to that sort of thing. So I think you're gonna find a
Yeah.
lot of that as well too coming up.
That's something I want to focus on here is the fewer inputs that I need to make.
Hmm.
The more that this farm is kind of fueling itself to go in that sort of
Yep.
as much of a closed loop as possible
Yeah.
is what I'm going
Yeah,
for.
I even try as much of that as I possibly can, even with my own urban
Hmm.
city property that I've
Oh,
got,
for sure.
and our different garden spaces as well too. We want to be as regenerative as possible, and recycling those things in and out of our gardens in order to, optimally produce as much as that we possibly can for ourselves, and then also for those zucchinis for our neighbors and our friends and
Right.
family and everybody else who gets to have some of ours too. But I really like the idea as well of the vegetable and fruit stand. It's something I've really been thinking about to kind of go right along our alleyway, because we get people just
Hmm.
passing through and walking through all the time. It'd be kind of really nice to have kind of like a grab what you want kind of thing. I
Yeah.
don't, I'm not going
Like
to
an
put up
honor
anything.
stand. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I don't know necessarily. I think there's some things on my friend's property we grow on that we might be doing for maybe some sort of level of profit or something like that.
Hmm.
But for the most part, everything I grow is always kind of like in some sort of donated type of sense. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
I give a lot of stuff away. I live really
Right.
close to downtown, so I have a lot of people, and there's also a mission that's not too far from here as well. So there's a lot of people who are houseless and all of that as well. They kind of are around the area that I'll
Hmm.
give little bags of stuff to as well too, that
Nice.
walk through the area and all of that too. So those are those sort of things. So I would kind of like, I want to kind of build kind of like what looks like a really cool stand, but something that people can just really kind of grab as they wish, and things that they want maybe.
Yeah, I've thought
It's kind
about
of
doing a stand
welcoming.
here, but I'm not on the main road. I mean, I'm 2 minutes from town hall, if that, but I'm off there's like the main road through town, and then there's a side road and a side road and a side road and a dirt road.
Yeah.
And so I'm kind of down off this weird little hook. But I've thought about it, at least for, people who, because I definitely have a bunch of local followers in my new town,
Yeah.
because it's a very close knit community. And once the granddaughter of the people that used to live here found my reel while she's living in Florida, and then
Oh,
she told
really?
the family, and the family told their friends, and now I have a bunch of people watching.
Oh, that's
Um,
great.
which is great. But so that might actually, I'm excited because that will maybe help me sell my goats.
Yeah.
And and then I've thought about doing like a little stand here locally. A lot of people
Yeah,
seem
yeah,
to. So there's where I used to live, you'd see people with coolers of eggs out and all that, and they're
yeah, yeah,
charging $5 or $6 a dozen. Here
yeah,
it's like $3 a dozen because
yeah,
there's an abundance, which is
yeah.
good. Which is
Hmm.
good. Inexpensive food for the
Hmm.
community is a good thing.
Yes.
And I'll take that. It'll pay for chicken feed. We're good.
That's right. That's right. Exactly. And yeah, too, I just wanted to mention as well, there's nothing wrong with for profit or anything. It's just kind of the model we use kind of right here in my area for what I'm doing. But
Oh yeah. Well,
I
I
would
definitely
love to
would want
have
to
a
make a.
place, and our other place that we have, I would love for certain crops to start bringing in some money
This is
and be
true.
able to start paying for some of this stuff.
Yeah, that's why I need those goat kids. I got to sell them to start paying off the goats.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of one of the things about doing this is kind of finding ways to kind of help pay for this stuff that we really like and we really enjoy doing too.
Yeah,
And what
I would
better
like
way
to
to
no longer have a day job and just do this.
that's oh man, I'm right there with you as well
Yeah,
too. That's I
wouldn't we
tell a lot of
all?
people. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I wish all of this brought everything in and the money that I needed to do all the stuff I really like. But yeah, I still got to work too and pay the actual bills and all of that. But and it would be great if all the projects did that for me. But you know what? That's just kind of the way they are. And
Yep.
but I enjoy what I do enough to keep at it.
Exactly, exactly. I would keep on doing this even, with all the, other work that I have to do. This is everything.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. All right, so let's get into it. You've got a channel called Wicked Awesome Gardening.
Yes,
I'm trying to remember. I think that I met you and we became friends on Facebook through a small YouTube gardening group
I believe so.
a
Yeah.
few years
'Cause
ago.
you were in, I think, like my very first live stream, like way, way back in 2021
Yeah, yeah, as I was trying to
when
follow
I still had my
people
grow
and
room.
show some support and do that sort of
Hmm.
stuff, as I try to do as much as I can around the community as possible. But yeah, yeah, so that's where I found you, and I just remember the name of your channel. What made you come up with Wicked Awesome Gardening?
Well, I'm a Bostonian,
Yeah,
and
okay, there
that's
you
the thing
go.
is wherever I go and they see Wicked and Wicked Awesome Gardening, they're like, "Are you
Yeah,
from Boston?" I'm like, "Yes, I am."
there
And so if you say my channel name in my native Bostonian, it's not Wicked Awesome Gardening, it's Wicked Awesome Gardening Kid. So
yes, I
so it
love
was
it.
meant to be a very like New England region based type of channel.
Yeah,
Growing up here in places with long winters. And I mean, okay, I'm not Canada. It's
right.
not that long, but it's
It's not
feeling
very
pretty
far.
long.
It's almost like an arm's reach away though, right?
It is. Well, so my friend Brampton Gardner is in Ontario. She's near
Yeah.
Toronto. She's in Brampton, Ontario. And I realized now that I've moved a couple hours north, if I Google map my house to her house, it's a straight line.
Oh yeah.
So we're up here.
Yeah, so you said nice cold winters and all of that,
Oh
right?
yeah. So we've got a good 6. We have more days of the year under frost warning than we do not
Right. Okay.
up
Okay.
here. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I'll tell you, my friend will like the name of your channel too. He's from Boston as well, where we grow my front yard. We have this really cool he has a big front yard on a corner lot that we put in two 20-foot by 40-foot plots the year before last. And we've been growing in that the last couple of seasons, and that's been really kind of fun. Kind of expanded me from my kind of small space into a bigger space. And so we've been kind of going crazy with that over the last couple of years. But he's from Boston as well too, so I'm sure he's gonna love the name of your channel as well. So what really inspired you to again start this channel, to start sharing this gardening experience?
Well,
This gardening adventure.
when I started growing my porch garden, I very quickly became kind of obsessed with it,
Right,
and I was
exactly.
posting tons of pictures on my Facebook page. And my friends were really kind of like getting into it and starting to be like, "Oh, how's the garden?" all the time. And then I started to become the plant lady, the gardening advice lady, because all my friends are going, "Well, how do I grow this?" And I'm like, "Oh, well, you do
Mhm.
this." And it kind of went from there, where for 2 years I was documenting my garden just in pictures and big
Yeah,
long text captions of explanations. And
yeah,
so that was really fun. And then the more I watched Roots and Refuge, and I would hear Jess talk about her, her personal story where they had no money, which I had no money, and I
mhm.
still have no money.
Right. Yes.
And they, worked their tails off to buy a foreclosed property, and they, that was, the primary thing growing on it was rocks, and how they built that into a little 4-acre homestead. And then they were
Yeah.
still like, they were a fairly impoverished family at the time. Like,
Mhm.
one of her early videos, they had a car accident, and then they no longer had a car, but they had 5 kids, and they like GoFundMe to get in, to buy a
Yeah.
$3,000 van. Um, and she said, and now we have this massive channel, we have all this success, we have a beautiful farm, we can just stay home and farm for the most part. And she goes, and YouTube is what did it. So if you have a feeling in there like you want to start sharing, and you want to, she goes, YouTube can do this for you, so do it. And so I did. And here we
Yeah.
are.
Yeah. No doubt. That's awesome. And again, too, kind of, I love the similarities in our stories there too. So again, so you kind of just kind of basically started sharing this garden adventure. Like I said, it's kind of similar to what I started doing too. And what kind of keeps you at it today? You started this a while back ago, and you're still going today.
I will say I've fallen off of YouTube a little bit, just because I don't know, I'm having the hardest time like getting out and actually shooting.
Hmm.
But I'm making a focus to get back to that, because I miss the long form content and all of
Yeah.
that. So I just kind of got swept up in the renovation and just kind of burned myself out a bit.
Right.
But next year is going to be full. I mean, there wasn't really much to show. It's just like,
Yeah.
hey, I painted a wall, you
Right.
know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've been really focusing actually on Facebook. That's where most of my following is
Yeah. I was
today.
gonna say, yeah.
Right now, I've got like 8,200 YouTube subscribers, but I'm over 400,000 on Facebook.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's one of the things I noticed this last year, because
Hmm.
I've followed along with you for a
It
couple
went
years
kaboom.
now, and yeah, it was just a little while back ago. I was looking, and I saw maybe a post that you had, and I remember clicking on the page, and I'm like, whoa, wait a minute, what happened
Yeah.
here?
Oh, yeah. In
Something
March, I had
something
about
clicked. Yeah.
500 followers on Facebook, and I posted one reel of the beginning of my renovation, like, look at this dump of a house, here we go. And it went boom. And so I've been really focusing over there, but I need to get back to YouTube. This is like the heart of it is YouTube.
Yeah.
Sharing the story. Like, you can share a lot in pictures and posts and short videos, but the real story is in the long form videos. And I need to get back to that. And next year I'll have a lot more to show. We're going to be building out gardens. We're going to be growing different plants. We're going to be putting in orchards and clearing land and baby goats and more renovations on the house. And so there's going to be so much to video and share.
Yeah. And, and again, too, it's kind of where it all kind of, started in a sense, as we both kind of mentioned in both of our stories.
A tomato on the porch.
And kind of following along with YouTube, and so the story kind of starts there, and we get onto the YouTube platform and start sharing ourselves. And also very similar for me, and of course, you mentioned you didn't have a garden really this last year, so it kind of makes sense that there isn't very much content to be sharing. I still had the garden, I still had certain things, but I had to kind of do a separation of focus. Again, and I think you mentioned this a little bit too, when we're taking on projects, as well as, for the garden, I when I first started gardening, I wanted to grow everything there possibly was, and took on too many things too fast. And this is kind of something that I think is kind of the way it is for a lot of gardeners who find that passion through growing and all that, find themselves in a similar situation. I find that as far as my personality, everything kind of goes that way. So when I started this, when I started this show this last year, I put my focus into building it and putting it together and everything, and found that, I need to really kind of work better time management and kind of figure out how to work these things together. So I had to kind of push back on the video content that I was making this last year. So I was in a similar situation again, where, I wasn't making the videos that I wanted to, but that's what I really enjoy the most, was the making and the creating of the videos. I love the editing process and all of that too. So, and again, too, very similarly, I've got cool new things that I'm going to be doing this next year, in these next couple of years. So I've got tons of cool content opportunities to be sharing with people. So again, too, really looking forward to that. All right. So you got any tips or advice or anything like that? Something you'd like to share to newer gardeners out there, or people who are getting started now? I mean, maybe you're learning some things right now, getting started with a new property or something like that. There's some things that you might want to share with folks.
Yeah. Don't get discouraged if you don't get the results that you want the first time, because I think that's the reason that most people quit gardening, is they're like, oh, yay, I'm going to garden, I'm going to grow these seeds, and I'm going to have all this. And then your tomatoes turn out puny, or, your beans get eaten by rabbits or something.
Yeah.
So just because it didn't work the first time doesn't mean that you can't go back and tweak what you did and get a better result the next year. Gardening is a constant evolution. It's a constant learning process. And, even the best gardeners among us still have a failed crop every year. There's always something that didn't go right.
Right. Excellent. Yes, that's great advice. And two, again, going back to that idea is that, taking on things, like I said, that was kind of the evolution of my gardening process, was kind of dialing back a little bit and really being able to kind of focus on certain things. Also, too, real quick, I have a question here. I think that's what's distracting me right here. Want to make sure I get this question in. Just popped up. Joe from Grow Big TV asks, what is Danny's favorite tomato variety?
You're going to make me pick?
I know.
Rude. No.
Exactly, right?
I think I've got really two that I have to grow every year, no matter what. And that's going to be the gold medal and the pink brandywine.
Okay.
Oh
The
yeah.
Brandywine variety. Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Excellent. Excellent. Yeah, and for me right now, I constantly have grown different varieties, always testing different things. So
Yep.
it's been rare that I've actually kind of grown consistently one specific variety because I'm always trying to try different ones. But because of an issue I've been having, and I talked about this a little bit too at the beginning of the show, was that we've been getting hotter and hotter summers here throughout
Yes,
our
here
summer
too.
season. And so that's changed the varieties I'm actually able to grow because they're not really adapting or responding to the heat very well. And I'm not getting
Hmm.
very much. So I've been kind of like wanting to over the last couple of seasons, didn't really have much of an opportunity this last season. So I grew the same variety I grew the season before that did all right. And it's called Big Red Chief or just Red Chief. Now
Hmm.
this one has really been growing really well in the heat. So I didn't have much of an opportunity to try a bunch of different varieties to test out different more heat tolerant varieties this last year. But I knew from the season before that the Red Chief did really well for me in the heat. So I wanted to make sure I grew plenty of that
Yeah.
this next year, and they're really good sized tomatoes and all of that as well
I'll
too.
give you a good one that grew because summer 2022 over here in New England, we had drought. It was just dry, 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 no rain for weeks and weeks. And it was also very hot. Like we had a lot of like 90-degree plus days. And that's unusual for us to have so many, but that's becoming much
Yeah.
more common each year. But
Hmm.
climate change is a myth, right? Anyway, you can debate the causes, but
Right.
you can't debate the
The
temperature trend data.
the
Uh,
actual
anyway,
reality that we're all living, right?
but we had when you're a gardener, you notice. But I had one variety while all of my other tomatoes were just dying.
Yeah.
Sugar Pud, and I got these seeds from Joe over at Grow Big TV,
Oh, well,
Garden
you'll have
State
to send
Gardener.
me some of
Sugar
those.
Pud, and they
Oh,
grew very, very well. I also have a very fun tomato that is fairly rare. Um, I got these seeds from Rich Giordano, who is a great like seed saving guru. He is a
yeah.
collector of rare heirlooms, and
I think I've heard of
a
him.
friend of his used to work at the Vatican in the
Okay.
gardens back in the 70s. And when he left, there is one variety of tomato that has been grown just at the Vatican for basically since they got tomatoes.
Oh, wow.
Tomatoes are not Italian; they are American. Um, yes, so ever since Italy got tomatoes, this variety has been growing at the Vatican. So it's just been making itself its own variety for forever. It's a nice sized paste tomato. So they call it the he and his friend who they've been sharing it to select friends for years, and I have some seeds, and so they call it the stolen Vatican tomato. And I have this mischievous little imp in me that wants to take that and cross it with the Jersey Devil paste tomato and
Right.
breed it down, create a stabilized hybrid of my own, like my own open pollinated tomato, and call it the Flying Spaghetti Monster. So
Yes. There you go.
that's what I'm going to be working on. I'm going to grow
Oh,
the
oh,
Vatican tomato this year and the Jersey Devil, and I'm going to do some cross pollination and see what comes of it.
oh, oh, excellent. Excellent. That's great too. Really fun to experiment in the garden too, and
Hmm.
to be able to do those sort of things with
Always got to
crossing
have
and
something
doing
crazy
things
going.
with, yeah, yeah, have some fun with it. Try new things, experiment, and see what you get, and that's really again part of all of the fun, and learning too. Again, too, if we're not learning, we're not really gardening. It's a
True.
lifelong process, and there's always new things to learn, always new things to try. That's what I think I love the most about gardening and all of that as well too. So again, too, let's see. And really awesome to have you here on the show with us today, Danielle. It's really been great to have this conversation with you. Real quick here, you want to let us know just a little bit more about your channel and where everybody can find you?
Sure. So I'm here on YouTube as Wicked Awesome Gardening. And I'm on all the socials. I haven't really posted on TikTok or Instagram in a while, but most of my engagement and most of my time right now is spent on Facebook. But I am getting back here to YouTube. Those are the best places to find me.
So awesome, awesome. So yes, definitely really encourage everybody to go and check out Danielle's channel, Wicked Awesome Gardening. We do have a link right down below in the description to take you right there, so you can go and subscribe and show Danielle some support from all of us here at Let's Get Growing. Danielle, thank you so much for joining with us this week. The conversation was really awesome, and can't wait to have you back on.
Awesome. It was a lot of fun. Thank you for having me.
You got it. Awesome. We'll see you.
Bye-bye.
Let's Get Growing is sponsored by IV Organic.
Hi, my name is Charles Malky, biologist and plant expert with Ivory Organics, where we grow cool plants and author Saving the World with the Home Garden. Ivory Organic 3-in-1 Plant Guard has 7 natural oils that protect your plants, not just from the summer heat as well as winter cold, but also protects your plants from damaging insects and rodents. The oils in the product include castor, cinnamon, clove, garlic, peppermint, rosemary, and spearmint. These oils are natural insect and rodent repellent oils, which are encapsulated by the base powder, offering your plants months of protection at a time. 1 application per year will suffice for protection against damaging summer sunburn and winter sun scald, but if the target is pests, application as much as 2 to 3 times a year may be necessary.
All right. All right. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining with us here this week. And again, big thumbs up for Danny on our show here this week. Hit the like button there. And again, too, subscribe to the channel and share with all of your garden friends there as well, too. You can find us on letsgetgrowing.live. And then also real quick, too, one more shout out for our gardening group, the Let's Get Growing group. If you haven't yet already, go and join our group there on Facebook. We got a link right down below in the description for you there, and you can share all of your gardens and garden pictures, videos, answer questions, all that sort of stuff with all of us in our Let's Get Growing gardening community. I'd love to see all of you there. And again, too, be sure to follow all of our links right down below in the description. And again, too, I really want to thank you all for joining with us here today. Again, thank you to Danny from Wicked Awesome Gardening. Be sure to go and check out her channel as well there. And again, too, thanks to Joe and Rob and Jay and everybody for joining with us here and jumping in with all of your great, awesome questions throughout the show. Next week, we've got with us on the show, we will have with us Steve List. Steve List is a garden educator at Asilmar High School down in Los Angeles, California, teaching teenagers all about agriculture and all of that. We did a video with Steve a couple of years back. I saw him down at the National Heirloom Exposition just a few weeks ago, so we had to make sure that we scheduled him to have him on the show with us. So join with us next Saturday to join the conversation with Steve List. And again, from all of us here at Let's Get Growing, I hope that you all have a wonderful week, and we'll see you next Saturday.